Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to this incredible ensemble of poets on the path, poets who are very much inspired and guided by their inner life. And these are all poets who have a unique take on their spiritual experience. And I'm going to have them talk a little bit about how spirit moves them and touches and colors sometimes their writing. Uh, Not to say that these poets only write on spiritual matters, but I think when you are inspired uh, with a appreciation of the infinite, and however you want to call that, it brings something to all your work. So let me welcome Rawl Iam James. Thank you, brother, for coming. Lantern Carrier, sir, an honor to have you. My dear Therese, thank you so very much. Whisper Poet, thank you for coming. I'm so honored to have you with us. Alexandra, my dear, so wonderful that you could join us. My brother David, hopefully you'll be sharing your views in just a moment. And so I want to welcome you all. I'm going to ask Rawl if you could just talk for a few minutes on how you became kind of consciously on the path.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much, brother, for bringing us together on such a worthy topic. And I'm honored to be here among, number one, brilliant human beings and also brilliant poets. So, excuse me, as Brother Richard said, my name is Rawl Iam James, and I am a poet. You know, where I am today is, I believe, everything that I do is spiritual because I am spirit. But as Richard said, how did I come into this consciousness? Well, back on December 17th, 2001 at 1:45 in the PM, I had a moment, that big moment in life where I heard divine spirit, God, whatever, or whatever term you use to define that. I heard a voice that basically was an invitation for me to look at life differently. And in order to do that, I had to be willing to step inside and step out of victimhood and kind of understand life differently. So I heard a voice that just was an invitation to really step in and do my own internal work. And what that really meant for me was an understanding of who I was beyond the meat suit that I walk around in, the meat suit that carries spirit, to understand, excuse me, the power, the energy that I truly am, that I am beyond this meat suit, that the energy of me that can never be destroyed, that there's no end. So that moment was a significant moment for me. As much as I've had some amazing things happen in my life, and one of the most amazing things is being a father to three amazing souls. I almost put that moment ahead of the birth of my three children, because that moment really opened myself up. It allowed me to truly understand life in a different way, to be fully present in the moment. And it didn't happen in that moment, but it was a progression of through doing the work that allowed me to really understand one of the most important things is to be present, because when you are present, you have full access to all your skills and abilities. So for me, when I think of spiritual, it's not anymore a separation, a disconnect. I've realized I can never ever be disconnected, excuse me, from source, from God, from Yah, like I said, whatever you call that. At the end of the day, we may call what our beliefs differently, but I believe we all believe the same thing. We just express it differently. So for me, being spiritual is just living life. It's living life in balance of understanding that I am spirit, but I'm also here in the physical. And if spirit made a choice to come to this world, then spirit is saying this is of a value and a very important, because it is how I believe we truly do understand what spirituality means, is being here in the physical world, to understand that the illusion of the things that are happening in our lives, as much as they are happening, it's an illusion in the sense that it's only here for a short period of time. and you are only here for a short period of time in this physical body, but then you will continue on. What you continue on to, I don't know. Do we really continue on? I don't know. It's just a belief that I have, that I feel, that like it's almost like it burns from within. So I go with that. So for me, the biggest thing about being spiritual is just being present with yourself, being present in all the energies that you feel, being present in the emotions, in the feelings of it all, being present with your reasoning, with your logics, just being present. So you know, sometimes I struggle with the term spiritual because, like I said, I really don't know. I only have my perception of things. But at the same time, I embrace being spiritual because I feel a comfort, I feel an ease when I'm in that space, in that mindset. This is one of the reasons I keep myself in that mindset of being present, because I am spirit. And when you are present, for me, you learn how to just accept life as it comes and not to live life through expectations. It's not that I don't have expectations, I just release them because I know it will come back. The way it comes back may not be the way I think it should come back, but it comes back. So because of that, I can just embrace the things that happen. And for me, one of the biggest part of being spiritual is the acceptance that I live in a world where I will experience the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. And all of those components make up my spiritual life in this physical understanding. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Let me turn to Lantern Carrier, sir. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started on the path, sir?
Sure, thank you. I was born into religion, spirituality, and poetry. I was writing poems since I was 4 years old, and my parents were staunch and devout Anglicans. So I grew up in Anglicanism. I took it on much more intensely than my parents because I literally followed the evangelist everywhere. I would go to the marquees in the villages and the towns and cities. And so I had this urge. I was born with it. I was writing poetry. No particular reasons. There were 2 or 3 people who were my friends, so we would share and get joy that way. I wrote short stories, I wrote flash fictions. Fast forward to 21 and I come to England, and I was born in Grenada, West Indies. And I basically forgot everything for 9 years. I just lived like people lived in the West. So spirituality for me in its pure form came as a reawakening, some spiritual experiences I had when I was 30 years old. I was married, I had 1 child, and I was reading a book by a disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. It's called The Path, Autobiography of a Western Yogi. I still have it. I had a series of spiritual experiences, and my whole life changed. My whole life changed. And then I began to see life in the true concept as I understand it today, speaking of the mystical standpoint. So I'm seeing life in an entirely different way, the way that accepts reincarnation, the way that accepts heaven as hell, as state of consciousness. I see everything now as an ever-evolving consciousness rather than a static God up in the sky. That's me, really.
Well, thank you so much, sir. That's fantastic. Teresa, let me turn to you, my dear, and ask you to tell us a little bit about how you got started on the path formally.
I think they both said everything. I came from a family of deep faith. They came from Ireland and Germany because of the suffering there. Alcoholism was part of my family history, and also a lot of courage. And even the alcoholics were wonderful people, just powerless over it. And so my family lived in service to one another. And many generations ago, they didn't have treatment. I had an aunt who used to allow alcoholics in her vestibule in the winter and give them a nickel so they wouldn't buy cheap gin. I mean, this is part of my life. Also part of my life was the understanding that God is our ground of being and sustains us, and that we're imperfect. And we would celebrate all the goodness in the holidays. We had phenomenal holidays. My grandmother's house was like magic. So coming from all that and all the limitations of that, like the history of, the immigrant church with the Irish and the Germans, where they were defending themselves against the American ethic and staying close. So we had a lot of rules and laws. And I think a lot of that was okay, but it disembodied us. Like we had rules and laws, but we weren't presented with the narrative of how God wants us to co-create and live fully. So anyways, to make a long story short, I also married a man who was very bright and very well-intentioned, but he also drank. So that became a problem. I had also, which I think is interesting, many spiritual experiences. And I wouldn't say I had them because I'm holy or good. I said I have them because I was trying and I couldn't do it without help. And that my experience of those experiences transcending was always when I was in profound need. Somehow I got it because I did believe the ground of my being. So one of the most significant things was when after I received Mass, I received communion, and I had two little girls, and my husband, he tried, but he was drinking. It was really challenging. I was only 22, and I was praying, let me be a good Catholic Christian. I knew not all Catholics were good Christians. And let me be a good Catholic Christian. And I had an experience which transcended the norm. It didn't feel out of worldly. It didn't feel like I was holy. It was just clearly love is the essence of your being. And only the distortion or perversion of love is sinful. But love is the essence of who you are. And this image of people in a circle and love flowing from one to the other. And I thought, that's nice. I didn't know that could happen. And I felt very peaceful. I did not feel holy or otherworldly. I did not live in that. I lived a very normal life, very challenging with little kids, but rich. And the only thing that changed is I really loved the scripture more than I did up until that point. I'm not even going to go into my whole life, but I can say that through dreams I was guided. And let me tell you, I'm not one who likes to cling to mysticism. Today, I don't know about other churches, but I get annoyed at some of the ways in which they talk about contemplation and mysticism as if it's a product you can buy or you can do enough so that you can gain it. It's like it's a free gift for everybody. When I was scrubbing floors when I was a mother, I can remember thinking about God because I always love to think about God and thinking, oh, I think I'm contemplating. Like I didn't even know what that meant at that point. It was natural, right? Okay, a long story short again. I was supported by my little prayer community from Taizé, which is an interfaith community which emphasizes silence and being active in the world. It's a very interesting community. And I went to India, and everywhere I went, I met people in 12-step groups. And I thought, this is very weird. The person who started the AA group, the person who started the Al-Anon group, the person who was given property by Mother Teresa to start the first treatment group. And I thought, wow. And I went to Shanti Vanam, this ashram, and there were all these Italian kids with their priests. They were all in NA. And I thought, all right, this means something. I have no idea what it means, but it means something. So anyway, again, to make a long story short, I studied substance abuse. I worked for about 14 years with people with AIDS. And at a time, many, like a pioneer really, was the late 80s. Many of them were dying, like hundreds of them. And I had groups of 20, 25 people. I started groups for people in recovery, IV drug use. I worked with gay and lesbian and transgender. And what I learned in those groups was like a finishing touch. First of all, I learned that to practice the discipline of spirituality in a real way is to look at myself and how I'm functioning. And I think that both of the speakers just said that. And to say, where am I in this? Am I doing my best? Can I do better? That's what the 12 steps is all about. And surrender. But to surrender.
Wonderful.
Okay. So anyway, to make it very short, I ended up practicing and teaching people how to practice spirituality and mental health through looking at themselves and the 12 steps. And that continues. I still do retreats for people.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, next up, Alexandra, can I trouble you, dear? Could you tell us a little bit about how you got formally on the path?
Formally? That sounds... Okay, well, I was always weird.
That's a good start.
So I don't exactly know. I think I was always I was always in another world as well as this one. I was always a loner. I remember I was not very I didn't have a lot of friends at school, and I didn't talk a lot. So I was always kind of weird. And when I was at boarding school in England, I would shut myself up in my room with my Greek writer Kazadagi, with the asketiki, which is his asceticism, and I would meditate in a very, very fierce way, like a fervent prophet or something. But I had never read about doing it. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just all innate and intuitive. It was just, yeah, it just all came out naturally. And so, of course, everyone thought I was slightly balmy. They approached me carefully. So, yeah, that was what I was like since forever. I was also terribly unsociable. I've just become more sociable recently, and with teaching, more sociable as well. And I would always write. I would always, from very, very early on, I would love to write a story and then draw a picture about it. So when I started writing the poems around 1920, that age, it was always each long poem was accompanied by an illustration in oil paint. So it seems that I was always illustrating, thinking in vision, sort of. It was both writing and pictorial for me. And I do remember that the only person who understood me at boarding school was my English teacher. And when we were having a philosophical discussion, he said, "Don't you know what you're going to be?" And I said, "No." And he said, "A poet." So I was 17 and I had no sort of knowledge of that, but my father was a poet. So yeah, so leading on from, I made a lot of poems which were with illustrations in oil paint. And eventually I went to New York for a year. And then my first husband had the idea, why don't you try graphic designing instead of all this heavy oil painting? So it was a good idea. And I did a graphic design course in Greece. And then I switched to graphic design, which was much easier to upload and illustrate the books with. So much easier than taking photos of all the oil paints. So the Flying series began in 2001 in a very sudden way. And that was when I had a very, very strong vision. I had visions before that as well. I would go up on the mountain and I would hear voices saying things to me that came true later on. But this particular time in 2001, it was a very, very strong vision, and it kind of swept up my whole being in its energy and vibrations. And it lasted for a year. So I felt like I was kind of one foot in the normal world and one foot somewhere else. It was very weird, and it started to wane slowly. It would just wane. The energy of it would just wane away. It was, yeah. And then that was when the Flying series started to kind of form itself on its own without me thinking, oh, this is the Flying series. And then I would just move on to doing the next one, then the next one, but very, very gradually and very, very slowly has the flying series evolved into what I now can consider is a form of initiation for myself and
Wonderful.
for whoever can, whoever hears the poems. And that's why I'm kind of dedicated to it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alexandra. Beautiful. David, sir, tell us a bit about your launch on this path.
Thanks a million. So I was raised in a very rigid Catholicism, and I didn't believe anymore by the time I was 13. And my last hurrah with that was on the day of my confirmation. I thought it would be ironic and funny to leave Catholicism at that point. And so I decided, as an agnostic, to only believe in things I had directly experienced myself. And so, I loved the romantic poets as a teen, metaphysical poets, all of that. And at Bennington College, when I was in my late teens, I was near a pond and I started to feel this beautiful energy emanating from the water. And then as I spent time there, I noticed that same energy was emanating from the trees nearby. And I had always loved that romantic poet idea of God is in everything. That power is in everything. And so I embraced that, and I thought, well, this is my first direct experience of God. I believe now in a divine power. And since I had been a little kid, I was dreaming of a woman I called my other mother, who and of a place that I had never been to. And it turned out, when I got there at 24, that the other mother was my guru, and the place I was seeing was the ashram I then had moved to. And it was just as it would be when I arrived. See, the ashram didn't exist when I was having those dreams as a kid. Anyhow, so I went to my guru's ashram, and briefly before that, I had an experience where I was sitting with a very spiritual friend, and I saw a dove made of white fire across the room, and it flew over to me and alighted on my head, and I felt kind of a burning, and it burned its way down my spine, and I collapsed on the bed, and my mouth just became moving of its own volition. So it started to say a creation myth. Over the face of naked waters, a nameless breath was blowing, and it kind of blew me away. And I brought the piece of trance channeling into poetry workshop with Stephen Kramer, a great American poet. And he said, I think your vision needs revision. I think your automatic writing needs rewriting. And so you could leave it either as a piece of trance channeling, or you could revise and develop it in the way of literature. And I hope you do. So I ended up editing that poem for 25 years. And in any case, just along the way, I fell in love with meditation and had my first real meditation experience of seeing the sun inside my chest and then having it explode and all kinds of beautiful things. And the last thing I'll say is I'm so fortunate. I don't think it's because I'm holy at all. I think it's kind of, I need more help than other people. I keep getting beautiful lines of poetry in my dreams, starting as a little child, and where I would see a figure I called the mummy, who was, I learned later on, was Nyaneshwar Maharaj, an Indian saint. Anyway, so as early as 6 years old, like I would see that, and he would say to me, your life is just one dream I am having. I have dreamt many lives before you. So the spirituality was always there in my life, and now I've got over 400 pages of those poems from dreams, and it's exciting stuff. So anyhow, I just am full on embracing the mystical life that I feel really exists just as much as we do sitting right here. So that's all.
Oh, thank you so much, brother. That was beautiful. Whisper, are you with us, my friend? Could you talk a little bit about your entree to the path?
Yes, absolutely. Um, so I always felt disconnected to my Christian faith roots ever since I was a little girl for a variety of reasons. But I guess I missed that sort of critical window of age where indoctrination of that is most successful. And then I had some negative things happen with organized religion as well, and it just never took. It never felt right internally. My first pagan experience was a celebration of life following the death of a dear friend when I was in my young 20s. And I didn't know it was a pagan thing. I just knew that it felt right. And it was really a Rubicon experience for me because it allowed me to cut ties with the guilt I had been carrying for being unable to fit my point of view into the box of Christianity. Having such an epiphanic experience at that ceremony was like, okay, it's just that they're not for me, and that's okay. I'm over here in this space, and wow, there is a space for me. But my transition from having no faith practice at all to living within my found spirituality came about as a result of a breakup that I went through last year, actually. I had purchased a deck of tarot cards from Marshall's, of all places, in I think 2022, and had begun learning tarot and practicing on myself and interested friends, and I had an instant affinity for it. And then I went through this breakup that was incredibly damaging. It was a poly relationship when I had never been poly, and it just really tore me up emotionally. And I had gone to a tarot social event and met the director of the Pagan Education Center in Dallas, North Carolina. And at that event, I did a reading for myself that just, I was crying, and this is at a bar. And I was like, okay, I can't. So I left. And the next day I went to the Pagan Education Center for a seminar on fire magic. And I just was sitting in that room with all of these strangers, and I was feeling so guilty because I felt that I was leaking my grief and my sadness all over the attendees. And I perceived that they're probably all sensitives to energy. And I had no idea how to block that. I knew that that's a thing that people do, but I had no idea how to do it. And I just perceived that, I'm being the emotional, paperweight in the room. And the dog came to visit the person sitting beside me on the right, and I wanted to love on the dog, and then the dog went past me to the person on my left, and I just fell apart. I was like, even the dog knows I'm a mess. I just fell apart in this room full of strangers. And the director, Sasha Davis, came over to me. She took me outside, sat me down on the ground, and gave me some lepidolite, and I was just sitting there sort of like, I don't know why I'm here, and I don't know what I'm doing, but it feels better out here than it did in there. And okay. So anyway, we ended up doing some fire magic. And my intention was that I can't be in this state anymore. This is rock bottom. I can't be in this state anymore. I need to let go of negative self-talk. I want to manifest my higher self, and I've got to stop thinking about him so obsessively. And so these were the intentions that I put, and we were burning bay leaves, and we made an herb mixture, angelica, some other things. And these were my intentions. And understand, I have never been one who can compartmentalize. I'm an emoter. I emote and emote and emote and emote intently until I'm done emoting, and then I move on. But that night after the working, he crossed my mind, and it was like this black glass just slid over it and just cut that thought off. And I was like, whoa, how did I do that? What just happened? And so right then I was like, holy crap, this magic thing is real. The power of intention is real. Whoa. So that kind of kicked off the journey and the explorations, and evolved into explorations until I experienced a spiritual calling at the beginning of this year. And I just sat down in front of my altar and said, show me what to do, because everything I'm pushing and trying, and it's not working. and this speaks specifically to like relationships and having gotten divorced in 2019 and trying to figure out like to find somebody and what am I supposed to be doing and all this stuff. And I came out of that with a spiritual calling and an understanding of my path in life. And when
Wonderful.
everything started flowing, everything slid into place and just flowed. And it was a beautiful thing. And so I am a witch. I'm my own flavor of witch. And I live in my practice. And it has definitely translated into my poetry for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Brother Dominic, sir, you want to talk for a few minutes, sir, about how you became formally a spiritual person?
Oh, hi, Rick. Yeah, possible. Couldn't get the blare off.
These things happen.
Modern technology for you. Yeah, I was brought up in a strong Catholic family, and my uncle was a missionary priest. Anyway, worked in Brazil in the favelas in Rio, and he was very keen on social justice, which is something that he passed down on to me. So it's something I've always been interested in. But I did go through, when I was about 18, 19, a sort of crisis of faith. I think it was when I was doing philosophy. I went on to do a degree in philosophy, and I found I gravitated towards, I think it was in the third year, towards Kierkegaard and Buber, who were more religious existentialists. And they kind of pointed the way for me. I wasn't so much interested in Sartre. And currently I'm studying another MA in philosophy and religion. Religion is something that's always stuck with me, even despite my doubts and my uncertainties. And it seems to have reflected a lot in my poetry over the last sort of 20 years. Because from my perspective, I think that the spiritual poems emerge in response to the central questions of human life, mortality and transience, isolation and alienation, the question of suffering in all its dimensions. So I think that's very important to me, you know. But in regard to back to my uncle with the social justice, I think that there's the spiritual side, but there's also the social justice side. And I studied Buddhism when I was at university, but then I got into Islam, and I see the importance of the social justice and the, do you like it, the transcendental side is equally as important. Yeah, that's all I like to say.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I'll give you, I appreciate how much you all took the most complex experience of human life and so successfully boiled it down to a few minutes of your launch on that path. And I'm going to try to do the same thing for my own experience. I had a great deal of ill health when I was very, very young, and I spent a lot of time in the hospital in an oxygen tent. And let me tell you about oxygen tents. They don't give you a warm connection. They really place people at an arm's length and very, very distant from you. And I felt pretty darn sorry for myself. Here I am, a little kid, in a late night in a hospital room by myself inside an oxygen tent. Even the best intentioned healers were, you know, an arm's length and then some. And I was feeling pretty bad. And, you know, my parents came and visited me, and that was all wonderful. But one night when I was feeling particularly bad, they rolled a young girl in a crib and put her in the room next to me. And that person was the first time I've had someone in the room next to me. And this poor little girl, she was younger than me, and she just wailed and wailed and wailed and wailed, completely inconsolable. And she was basically dumped there unceremoniously. And her crib had bars over the top. It was full surround sound bars. And I thought, you know, maybe I can help her. Maybe I can make her feel better. So I started singing to her and talking to her. And I came to bring her around, and she stopped crying and screaming, and we ended up having a little conversation. And it came to me very much as a learning experience that when I felt bad, I could help someone, and then we'd both feel better. So I learned that. And then I was raised Catholic. I was one of those impertinent young Catholic children who asked too many damn questions for the and I got thrown out of the class a lot when I took catechism class. And of course, it taught me something different. And then when it came time for my confirmation, like David, I had a bit of an experience there. Somehow I'd been out of the room when they said that the conclusion of our confirmation process, you were supposed to kiss the bishop's ring. Now, I understand now that that's not always common, but in the church I went to, that was the thing. And I'm looking, and I was like, well, yeah, I'm an S. I'm at the end of a long line of kids, the kids I went to school with. And I see these kids kneel down and kiss this guy's ring. And he did not have a nice aura. Just for those of you who are into a little woo-woo, he did not have a nice aura at all. And as I got closer and closer, I kept seeing in my mind's eye, I'd see Tom Jefferson and Tom Paine and John Adams. And I'm thinking, you know, this is not about kingdom. This is not about princes. This is not about priests. Even Jesus wouldn't want this. He'd be washing your feet. He wouldn't be asking you to kiss his damn ring. It just seemed like completely unchristlike. So when I got up there, I thought, look, Rick, you're not going to explain this to anybody. Just go through it. It's going to be 2 minutes. It'll be done, over. Don't even think about it. But I'll tell you what, when it came down to it, I couldn't kiss that ring. I shook his hand. Well, did not make him happy. So he puts his hand right in my face and said, kiss it. Now, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't imagine any priest that I knew of would say that, and certainly Jesus wouldn't. So I shook his damn hand again. And in front of the entire congregation, he ordered me out of the church. Okay, it put a crimp in my confirmation party, I can tell you. But it came to me that I made a vow to my angel, because I was a very religious-minded kid. I took a vow that I would read every holy book I could. So I read everything from the Urantia books, 5 or 6 different versions of the Bible. Of course, you don't hear that there's a lot of versions, a lot of translations of the Bible when you're a little one. But I came around to it. And so I read the Upanishads, the Ramayana, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and all that stuff. And I came to realize that the other part of the problem was, it seemed to me, you can't be happy saying we only use 10% of our brain. So it seemed to me I should look into who taught how to use more of it. So that really got me on the path. And I began studying, and I found that the philosophy, the theosophy, those who were dealing with mental development, all found the same techniques: chanting, breath control, breathing exercises. These were universal. Imagination training. And it reminded me so much that whether you're chanting Ave Maria or Hare Krishna, or Namyoho Renge Kyo, or what I used to have my students when I taught yoga chant, which was Avocado Nawakada, it really doesn't make any difference. It's the mechanical things, that regularization of breathing, that helps you have a transcendental experience. Whereas Ruth used to chant his own name. But anyway, that was what got me launched. And thank you so much for your indulgence, my friends. Now, I know some of you were struck by some of the comments made. Let's just open the floor up to a little bit of discussion. Some people, I'm sure, heard something so similar to their own experience. Some people heard something completely different. Anybody have a comment about what we heard from our fellows? I'll ask you to take a moment or two to discuss it. Teresa, go ahead. Share your thoughts, dear.
I think what everybody has in common, which is also a significant thing in 12 steps, is that somehow, whatever the issue was, we all were seekers, and we had some kind of transcendental or spiritual experience outside of the norm that told us we were on the right path. We didn't know that. We were just trying our best, whatever. And I have to tell you, though, Rick, I think that's a hilarious story. And a great one.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Yeah, I would ditto the sentiment. I think it's one of the reasons I love hearing people's stories, because I hear my own story within the other stories, and I heard myself in everyone's story, because at the end of the day, we may call it something different, but we all have a belief, we all have a faith. Can't be proven, but we have it. And it's uniquely ours, but yet it is uniquely our collective story as well. So it's very interesting hearing everyone's, perception of spirit, perception of God, of divine, whatever you call it. It's always good to hear, because it's almost soothing when I hear it. When I hear David's story and yours, and Lantern, coming in as this young spirit, just, probably if he could have picked up a pen when he was a baby, he would have been writing poetry at that time as well. So, yeah, so it's just really refreshing to hear the stories of how uniquely individual we are, and yet we're still one. So it's really good.
Indeed. Oh, Rick, I only wanted to say I was rooting for you in retrospect. I think you did the right thing. And I can't imagine being commanded to kiss someone's ring being any kind of direct mystical experience of the divine. So I think you made the right call there.
Thank you. Whisper, go ahead.
I don't know if anyone follows the 12 laws, but I definitely believe that every word, every thought, every deed puts energy into the universe, negative or positive. And I actively try to do things to effect positive energy. My background is the mountains. North Carolina mountains have suffered greatly, and I got a load of supplies and took them up to the mountains. If someone is expressing that they're in pain, I say, well, I'm not trained in Reiki, but I've done energy work before and taken pain away. Would you like to try? I'm glad to try. I actively try to put myself in situations to be of service to others, because that is my calling to do that. But I know that that's not everyone's calling, and I'm curious about the thought of being active in positive energy versus thought in positive energy, and is there a difference? How do we change the course? Can we change the course of the world by being a positive thinking but neutral acting, or do we have to act?
I think that's a great question. They say contemplation leads to struggle, but struggle leads to action. Sometimes, and the 12 steps makes this clear in the third step, some things are unmanageable and we don't know the way, but we're willing to wait. But it's active passivity, so that we can hear from others or the universe or a book, what's the next step? But if I'm a psychotherapist, and I taught for years in a college, and I used to tell the students, social work master's level students, if your clients aren't getting better in 3 weeks, refer them to somebody else. That people are coming for help, and they're coming so they can identify how they want to change, what they want to change, and that you're a change agent. So I think what you're saying is really important, because I think people get trapped in abstractions and teaching, and I found your sharing very interesting, by the way. It was I hardly ever hear from people who are witches or pagan, and it was very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think because we live in a physical world, action is required. It's a lot of times our best intentions, we like to think our intentions is good enough, but intention to me is like a dream. It's like a hope. Unless you put it into action, it really doesn't matter. So I think in this world of contrast, of duality, it's about balance, and it's about understanding intent. But in order to manifest intent, you must take action. So, and I think it's high time we hear more from witches and those so-called pagans, because a lot of our religion comes from that
Yeah, I had
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, everything is all connected. So, but action is important.
I had the very good fortune to have an uncle who was an anthropologist by training, but a history teacher by necessity. And I had fallen in love with the Iliad, and he saw me reading, and he said, "You know what? I bet you'd like this anthropology stuff." And even though I was still in elementary school, I began devouring cultural anthropology, and it really opened me up to a wide range of religious and spiritual experience, and it gave me an appreciation for the variety of culture, and I think it really helped me in my spiritual studies. Whisper, you had another comment to make.
Thank you. I'm always very curious to hear if others had any sort of block or concern about where your spiritual journey was leading you, and how you reconciled that. I know that my own was reconciled kind of through a scientific dialogue with myself, to go from atoms and electrons having energy through into transmutation of energy, and that when I'm doing spell work, I'm manipulating energy. And I was able to reconcile all of that for myself and come to an understanding within myself of, when people have questions, well, ghosts aren't real or magic isn't real. I was able to reconcile all of those things through logical deduction, and the 12 laws were a big help as well. And I'm always curious to hear how others, if you had any kind of doubts, how you reconciled those for yourself.
Teresa, you had a comment to make, dear.
Oh, I have thousands of comments. It's fascinating, because it's all part of the whole, right? Energy. I mean, what is love? Love is active energy. I don't know. My head is spinning. I don't think I raised my hand. I was thinking of this though with Dom, that you probably love Flannery O'Connor, who is a Catholic existentialist. I don't know if you've read it, but I love her. And she says something which I think applies to all of us. You shall know the truth, and the truth will make you odd. I love that.
I must swim in the truth then.
Well, we all described in some ways, but I mean, that to me is how we all end up. That's God's business and our business, but it all demonstrates. I mean, Rick's experience demonstrates how we are struggling to be authentic, and it's a painful task. And we all know we're different. We all know, like I was actually laughing with Alexandra describing herself. And then I thought, oh, now I know why she has such an incredibly contemplative, universal language that she uses. You wonder, like, where does that come from? I mean, it came from somewhere, but I could see her experiences. I mean, it's very fascinating to listen to everybody's story, because I understand more about you from listening to your stories.
I'm still weird.
Well, thank goodness. The best people are.
To answer Whisper Poet, in order to be unblocked, you have to be blocked. In order to be found, you have to be lost. Mm. And too many people want to be found, but not understanding the value of being lost. Mm. I believe as spiritual beings that living this world of duality, I don't know why spirit is here. I just know I'm here. But I believe entry into this ego's domain, because I do not believe this is a world of love. I believe this is a world of fear. This is why fear works so well here. We come from love. But in order, entry into this world requires that how powerful the love that we are, that knowledge has to be blocked. So we can come in and have these experiences. But then along the path, early, middle, end, you will be afforded an opportunity to be found, to move away from the victimhood, to move away from the suffering, to move away to understand the victimhood and the suffering served a purpose. Because we live in a world of contrast and duality. If we were in a constant state of love, how would we know we were in love? So, you know, we live in a world where that contrast, that duality serves a great purpose, because again, you cannot be found unless you're lost. So,
David, you had an interesting comment over in the chat. Why don't you share that about positivity in action?
Thank you. Yeah, my reaction to Whisper Poet's question was that positive thought and action are two wings of one bird. Like that bird is flying along the spiritual path, that, you know, it's our life in the world. And those are two different ways of embodying a positive presence on earth, living our life as a prayer, so that our thoughts benefit people, our words benefit people, and our actions as well. So I think it's all part of that, living a great life for others and oneself.
well
I
said.
take that
Well said.
view, and I also take the holistic view. So I agree with David and Whisper there, but I slightly disagree with Rawl. I'm not quite sure what he was meaning about fear, but if I could explain how we perceive it on Sri Chinmoy's path, God or love is the life tree, and everything else are the branches of the life tree. The creation is a projection of the creator, and they're both one. So fear itself is playing its own role. Everything comes into being because it has a role to play, and nothing is negative in the true sense, really. Light, darkness, and fear, they're both necessary. In the grand scheme of things, it's a divine lila, and the world is extremely beautiful. I see the beauty, I don't see the fear. I might acknowledge the fear, but that's why we talk about illusion. But if you go deeper, we say there's no such thing as illusion. That's what Ramakrishna said, and that's what my guru says, because it's all part and plan of the whole. When you see the thing as a whole, everything makes sense. The branches are a part of the tree, and they're equally necessary, whether it's the branch of activism or philanthropy or whatever the branch is, or priesthood. You know, in a family of 7, one is a doctor, one is a nurse, one is a sweeper, but they're all playing an essential role. One flower is a tulip, another one is a rose, another one is an orchid. They're all different, but they all come together to create that kind of symmetry. So love is the life tree, and humanity are its branches, and everything is one. So the negative is as important as the positive, and there is light in the darkness, and everything is just one big game that the Supreme is playing in its own way. Man, when man thinks of itself as being in charge, the problem starts. Because love never lets go of being in charge of its own creation. Love is always in charge, because the creation belongs to love and not to humans. And another thing Whisper said, I think Guru has an aphorism which supports it very well. It says, try not to change the world. You will fail. Try to love the world. Lo, the world has changed forever.
Well,
Let me ask Alexandra, you've been contemplating and somewhat quiet, my dear. Can I ask you to react to some of what you've heard?
Well, I agree with everyone. Yeah, I was just thinking about the darkness and light and all that. I agree with everything. I just forgot what I was gonna say. Let me just come back to you, because I was
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Whisper, I wanted to say one other thing about your comment. I am by nature a very, very skeptical person, and I came. One of the reasons that I was uncomfortable with spirituality per se, especially after my Catholic experience, was I wanted to see proof. I wanted to, put my hand in the wound, so to speak, in a Christian context. But you know, the thing that I came to realize, and I was chided by this, I had, through a long chain of coincidences, I met a woman who had a large collection of Buddhist material and Taoist material. So I began devouring this stuff. And she chided me. She said, you know, your hyper skepticism is really a mask. You know, if you were really objective, you would be no more or less skeptical of this than anything else. And I said, you know, you're absolutely right. And that's where I began my exploration of astrology and tarot and I Ching and many of these things, which I had mistakenly assumed that my hyper skepticism was objectivity when it really wasn't. It was a prejudice against the leavings of my Catholic training. And I found by doing experiments, I came across a mystic who had a phrase, I make no reliance on virgin or pigeon. I use the method of science to the aim of religion. And I thought, now that made sense to me. I'm a double Virgo, for whatever that's worth. I'm hyper skeptical, but I found that by doing spiritual experiments, I would document it in my journal, and I found that these were efficacious techniques: the chanting, the breath control, the breathing exercises, the imagination training. And I had my tarot experiments work quite shockingly effective. So, anybody else have a final comment before we get to the
what I wanted to say was that based also on the Whisper Poets declaration of the blocks and the pain and everything which we all have been through, that we know that the souls have to come to Earth for our lessons, but then depending on our behavior and the things that we do here, we're either we're either developing or we're kind of undeveloping. So when we look at the demise of other people in wars and in very serious situations, I have contemplated as to why them and not others. And apart from what we have agreed to come to from before we enter the embryo, there's also the philosophy of reaping what we've sowed in previous cycles. And we do not know, it's kind of been, the slate has been wiped clean in order to clean the soul. So we come down with a clean soul again. So we don't really know why certain things are happening to us. But there is the reaping what we sowed karma. And yeah, so we have to kind of, I'm not saying go and hypnotize yourself and see what happens in your past lives. But it was a way to understand that, yeah, our souls are going through certain multiple processes through each life, and we don't really know how we handled our previous life and why in the next cycle we're in certain situations.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Now I'd like to enter the poetic phase of our adventure together. And again, I have to thank you all so tremendously. This has been such a stimulating and enlightening conversation. I'm going to go first with Lantern, sir, because I have a video he would like me to share. And with any luck at all, you'll all be able to hear it, and it will be marvelous. I did an experiment earlier, and it did seem to work. But before I rush to poetry, any final comment anyone would like to make?
I will simply say, I do not believe God would have placed us in the garden in a world of contrast to only then have good and beautiful experiences. Because I cannot know good and beautiful without bad and ugly. I think it's upon us to just understand who we are the best that we can, because at the end of the day, all of us have our beliefs, and we can't prove any of it. Even if we think we can, we really can't. So we just have our beliefs. And I just look at the physicality of life, knowing that there is more behind it, in front of it, to the sides of it. But at the end of the day, going back to intent and action, in this physical world, it's only through the experiences of the contrast that I understand anything. So I cannot know love without fear, and I cannot know good without bad.
Thank
The
you.
laws of physics require.
Dominic,
Yang.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Whisper.
Well, the laws of physics require yin and yang. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Duality, law of duality, it's one of the 12 laws. Rick, I really hope you will have a second of these conversations, because one of the questions I wanted to bring up was my own sort of observational theory that I think when we experience childhood trauma, it somehow interrupts the process of shellacking over our third eye that those who have not gone through trauma experience, and why people who don't have sensitivities to energy and spirits and things like that think they don't exist, because they literally can't experience them, because their normal development of childhood has shellacked over the third eye. Because we always tell kids as children, oh, that wasn't grandma that you saw in your dream talking to you, because she's been dead 15 years. You were just dreaming. That wasn't real. We teach children that all of their experiential evidence that tells them otherwise is wrong. And I think that causes that shellacking. But those of us who are weird and proud of it have a dysfunction of that shellacking. And though I believe that's how we end up being sensitive to energy, because we never experience that calcification. And maybe we turn that tap on as time goes on. But I would love to have another of these where we could talk more about that.
I will take that wise suggestion under advisement. Thank you, my dear. Dominic, let me ask you, do you want one final word? So you haven't had a chance to chime in on this part of our show. Do you have any comments on the lovely tales that we heard?
I'd just like to say regarding, because I study philosophy, Soren Kierkegaard said that the search for novelty leads to the threshold of despair. And if that's not appropriate to what's going on currently, I don't know what is.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and start the poetic portion of our adventure. And we will we'll start with Lantern. Let me share screen and share this piece of his. One moment, please. Okay, share. And okay, we've got sound optimized. All right, here we go.
Love touched me. It was so powerful, my breath became suspended. My heart shed blissful tears. I had not previously experienced this sweetness, and I was taken aback. In my drunken haze, I tried to comprehend this music, mesmerizing the alcove of my being. Alas, it was to no avail, for a compelling delight silenced the intellect and calmed my soul. I saw myself emanating rhythms from the majesty of the sun. A pulsating light took hold of my darkness, smashing it into a trillion fragments. I swooned in reverie, intoxicated by the splendor of my eternal home.
Thank you, Lantern, for that wonderful video clip. It was amazing. Sir, would you like to add anything to that piece? Read a second one if you'd like.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I said, open sesame. My Aladdin soul opened to hordes of peerless treasure. Love caressed the inner portals of my heart I became intoxicated with the joy of speechless bliss. I sang eloquently for my beloved. My lyrics soared to the pinnacle of perfection. My core was flooded by a nameless music, strumming to the rhythmical sweetness of eternity. I searched for love's golden laser emanating from the craters of the sun. My cheeks were kissed by an effulgent dazzle, streaming the unutterable light of the beyond. O vast peace, the door to thy mystery is flung wide open. I now melt in thy profound stillness of infinitude. You want me to read another one, or is that it?
Let's go ahead and keep it to that. Keeps us in a good time frame. Thank you. Thank you so much. They're beautifully done, sir, as always. Your words are so, I'm going to just say spiritually empowered, always breathtaking and inspiring. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Let me turn to Rawl, sir. Would you read us a couple pieces?
Yes, let me first unmute. Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. I'll start with this piece called Nirvana's Cradle. A sage insight unfettered from the soul into droplets of words at the morning's dawn. One at peace in the oasis of his knowledge, thy ignorance nestled in Nirvana's cradle. Into this dream to awake from the emptiness, a bearer of light and dark, my karma echoes time. Through the door of possible, moments unfold as I embrace my shadows in the valley of souls. I am a calling that serves the battered mind, amidst the lust-filled hunger of blinded eyes. My warrior's pen medicine for this dis-ease, a spark of poetry to the inner art of the weary. My mind's eye, a motif of alternative realities, each heartbeat a key that unlocks a knowing. I am the light in the dark of my memories. For pain's purpose, my resiliency shines. Wisdom comes out of revelations past and into the moment, the bearer of light. In the mirror, I see the illusion of reflections as an illumination of truth rising from the ashes. Purpose renewed in my realm of perceptions, for I am the power in the desert of my mind. My divine breath propels me in this time as I venture forward back to the unknown. And as death intention draws closer to fulfill its purpose, a time for all things, I am the maestro of my unfolding life's opus. In Nirvana's cradle, my battered soul rest. End of piece. Thank you. And
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
You want me to share another one now, or?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I want to read I Dance with My Serenity or This Blessed Spiritual Life. And since I guess the theme is spiritual, I'll go with This Blessed Spiritual Life. Within the lofty perch of my mind, God's command in motion the wind to spread inspiration far and wide. In the breath of life's warm embrace dwells the precious pearls of aspirations woven into the vibrant hues of conscious design. At each dawn, wisdom's rays emerge to shine the divine into the art of philosophy. For nothing is hopeless in this living opus. Every breath is a catalyst for an awakening, weaving our stories into the tapestry of time. We are the gods, the Alexa, creation's birth. Embrace the kingdom of your being, power of nothing, a conscious reflection, igniting the sage vision within. We are here to taste abundance in full, mysteries unveiled of the good and the bad, the ugly and the beauty of our soul's contract. God smile, for we are the crafted poetry, sacred right bestowed upon us that walks this earth, a harmonized symphony into existence flow. We are the cross, a resonance of frequency, the passage of this earth experience, lost and found in Nirvana's cradle, where our souls shine. And
Thank you so very much, Rawl. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Let us turn to our sister Teresa, my dear.
Thank you. I'll read two poems. The first is very much about my mentor, Teilhard, who is a paleontologist, scientist, Jesuit, evolutionist. And the next one is from my book, soon to be on Amazon, The Rosary, Pearl of the Cosmos. I'll read them together. Let's just see. They're up there. Sorry about that. Okay. So the first one is, as I said, sorry about that. The Essence of Love, in honor of Teilhard. Hey, could someone tell me why I'm here now amidst the galaxy? I was told to love, serve, and be happy above with God, who said, when two or more are gathered in my name, I'm there instead. So why am I here? I must confess, I was a mess for following someone else's story. Although I learned, I was concerned that it wasn't mine. But still, I tried and tried and tried again. I used to be in pieces. My head had no real way to say just who I am. And maybe if someone knew how to teach us, we wouldn't freelance trying to make it all work, our heads, our bodies, and the erotic urge. We could compose ourselves and come to know how love congeals and helps us grow into differentiating. Now that, my friend, is the full realization of co-creation. We enter communion only when we become our essential self. To love all begins in trial and error, and we risk the terrors accompanying each task. The grief and loss of our first fall had left us shattered, and so we scattered, defining ourselves by difference. There is suspicion now that we are alone and must have it all through competition, and not atone or do our very best along with all the rest to love and live in service. Our faulty misperception or perversion of that love that sustains us can be blamed for my confusion. You see, in the noosphere, there are hints of this fusion we require to rewire us into our communion. It all begins here, and love is very near, and love is always erotic. Love is not only exotic or romantic or the love of family or the frantic search to pair. It isn't there. Love is everywhere. So why I am here cannot be clear, and it is a risk to be transformed. So be forewarned. Grieve what we are and what we know, for this must go, and only shows the endless evolution of the cosmos. My life had been a blur, and what occurred had something to do with love that endures, but knowledge and language will disappear. Now, somehow, that made it clear. Being here is how we grow, sinew by sinew. Our fears can be transformed by love. It's hand in glove, as we relate at the gate, opening wide all the mysteries inside. So while directions are not clear, we can hear them if we listen. We shimmer and we glisten and radiate a newer form of energy that sets us free to be ourselves. And then, glory be, we now have gained all, and all was set in motion with the desire to relate and co-create. Not to be verbose, it is you and me who will set us free, and if we listen and act, we'll make our way back. We will love one another, and we won't need the cover of a disinterested bystander. Yes, this plan from me and our galaxy is so much grander than I can see, though meaning is woven through our suffering. Love does not desire our grief, our tears, or our sighs. A light appeared and broke through in my nights of despair, showing signs of hope everywhere. The light hides deep inside when it illuminates and allures like a message in a bottle sent to foreign shores. Forsaking our weeping, we dig deep, and love reassures. This way patches us all back together where mind, body, and emotions meet, and we speak all together in one voice. Rejoice. We're on our way, with no division, nor the prison of despair, for hope is planted everywhere. So that's one. And this is, I thought I'd choose this because most people have a lot of confusion about, nobody ever talks about what the assumption might be for Mary. It's kind of a mystery. So I attempted to do that. So it's called The Assumption of Our Lady. It's one of the mysteries in the Rosary Book. The cosmic Christ has risen above, extended through our body in love. I rise in him. Blue. The sky passes through my being, seeing put aside for new eyes. Blue, breathe now through the universe. Endlessly we rehearse, preparing for eternal cosmic splendor. I surrender the ever-present union of my body, mind, and spirit, coalesced, intact, in communion with the Trinity, my destiny. The divine benevolence wrapped in my humanity, entwined in flesh through love. Can you see love's incarnate gaze in the ways our love gave birth to our Son, blessing this earth and each and all to end the division of the fall? Caught up in love, no fractious split in time and space, no place for Eden's disgraced. One, only one, deeply together we are one. Division torn asunder, now consumed in awe and wonder. Blue, now grace flows through, unending, stretched across the splendor of the cosmos, yes, and each and all of you alive together, a standstill filled with deep and silent wonder. Eternally, I ponder the flowing out to each beyond the breach to earth. Encourage, inspire circles of personal and global relationships of ever-expanding love. I give, we give, no passivity. We see your need. Blue, wordlessly new understanding, unity too, ever-present, time and space now erased in sublime, endless, unfolding love. I did not rise above, no. My body with my love passed through the portal of fractures beyond the veil of time. Blue, we dwell within each of you. Can you sit in solitude and let love speak and seek to know the endlessness of me in you? Thank you.
Thank you so much. A wonderful poetry.
Thanks.
Hey, may I ask, Whisper, would you go next, my dear?
Thank you. And Nemo just called me, and so I sent him the Zoom. So you may see him pop in just a moment. This is a poem I wrote in June when I visited my cousin in New York City, and he and I had a difference of opinion about something, but I had to leave the apartment because he is a therapist and needed privacy to do that. So I ended up in a sidewalk sushi place, just sort of people watching, and this poem came out of that. Sidewalk sushi in New York air, and I'm watching people pass, embraced by old brick arms as birds, trees, and jazz flavor iced cold green tea. Yes, universe, I'm listening. Wasabi is a fresh bite of listen up in my nose and on my tongue, stinging me with graded revelations that prickle sleeping sulk eye. I've been umamified. Inhale and feel the moment root truth slaps my neurons. I am, therefore I think, but just let me feel my way. Salmon skin crunch is sublime on my tongue, alchemying virtue from verisimilitude, epiphany from epidermis. The bike riders bring messages from the divine, delivering bags of truth wrapped up in white paper. Angels' wings are bicycle tires. I'd rather have it hand-delivered. And the wambulance wails by, there but by the grace go I. God, it's loud. But maybe I require truth by IV. If there's a problem, it's not with my veins. Fate's been running game on me since before poetry gave me my name, feeding me lines of typo mixed with AB, because I need the one to sweeten what's there to heal the inner me. Message received. And I want to believe I know the difference between acceptance and a clutch play victory reception. Universe, I need you to hold on for a moment while I finish this plate, because I think this sushi might be made of truth serum and empathy. Don't force feed. I need to be shown and not led. There's a dove on my plate in the shape of ginger, a sweet pickled smack in my peace of mind. So let me sip that wisdom cup a few more shekels, because money is time. Neural pathways are forming. I can smell it on the breeze. Time is money. I need another round of fortune cookies now, please. Divinity blessed me with knowledge before she headed to Tiffany that I don't need to understand to love you. And you don't need my understanding to receive. We're all in together now. So take my hand. We just need to breathe.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Continue, please.
And this is a kiss from the rain. Rain sings against my parched skin as I watch the darkness boil towards me. Wind rises, and I lean into its embrace, waiting for Mother Nature to crack open the geode of her skies. Let the rain fly forth from that crystalline maw of jagged light. Lightning explodes from shimmering teeth, power to snap my bones and fry my flesh. Energy rides the air. I turn my head to feel the floating of my hair and breathe it in, that ancient humid scent of cleansing. I need it like redemption. Come, storm, let the lash of water rage forth to drench me in the divine. Turn face to sky and throw my arms wide to bear myself to its fury. Saturate me in clean and drown my sorrows. Send my failures away in a flood of forgiveness. I will soak in self-love as the droplets tattoo me in a plit, plit, plit on my lips. Rain is life, and I belong to the living. So let the lightning AED me into a place called healed and forgiven, as I shape my palms to fill them with the gleaming cloud gift, straight from Zeus himself. Drink it down and feel the grace spread through me to quiet my thoughts. I am alive on this earth, counting my blessings on two hands and turning my cheek to receive these magical kisses the divine has sent to me from heaven.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay. My friends, we are really coming to a wonderful place. Let me bring on Dominic, please, sir, if you will join us.
Oh, hi, Rick. This one is called Praise Be the Light. Praise be the consoling light that protects, the light of sanctuary from the darkest fear, the light that glows for those who meditate in the midnight hour. Blessed be the singing light that beautifies, the light that fractures through figurative stained glass panes, the light that punctuates the pure womb of blue, of sky and sea. Praise be the profound light that guides, the light that inspires the genius of creators, the light which is invisible to mortal vision. Blessed be the light that expels Adam's curse. Blessed be the warm light that unites, the light of grace of silent communion, the light which dissolves the boundaries between us.
Do you have one more for us, Dominic?
Yeah, go on, you can just looking for it. Yes, I've got it, yeah. At the start of the year, I did a quartet of poems about the sacred islands of Scotland. And this one is the final one, called the Shetland Isles, Scotland. And it's called Shetland Isles of Scotland's Rootedness. This is the world's edge, where wild winds constantly blow. It defines centres and renders them meaningful. These are the islands where druids and monks once dwelt, among the rugged and the remote. Oftentimes one can feel the very bones of every slow century from the dawn of time, still sturdy beneath one's feet, supporting vast swathes of green and brown flesh, always. Ancestral spirits link each generation of little yet steadfast communities. Self is not prized here, not among crop farmers and fishermen. Boundaries dissolve amidst warm communion. Through prayer, life is stripped of its impediments. We modern nomads cannot envisage such things. We cannot be still, always striving for new quests to satisfy us, albeit temporarily. Is the sea change in attitude still possible, notwithstanding all the endless noise pollution? In deep quietude, can we slowly awaken from futile dreams, which are but fleeting shadows?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so very much. Okay, it looks like David has temporarily missed us. So let me set up the share screen, and then let me turn to my sister Alexandra, please, if you will. My dear, the stage is yours.
Line 19. It might be too untimely yet to dismantle the veils. Even so, I can see an all-pervading phlogiston in these little modest flowers, acclimatizing the seeds in our gardens to Olympian soils and seasons. Even so, in this dense temporal spin, outer circles burning to interiorize homoousia. Even so, in this crystalline spatial spin, inner circles burning to be exteriorized by homopsychia, shifting personalities from misguided, disheartened to demiurgical, enkindled, Hephaestian octahedrons, outshining illusory miasma into raised psyche valiance, master alchemizing positive electric sparks, magnetically captivating gold vortices, hierophants reverently conducting phohatic heat into exotonal lines, spinning, crescenting blossomed mounts and fiery triplicity, spinning, crescenting personal progress and self-extension. Even so, it might be too hasty yet to visit other lands. Even so, I can walk on this earth's plains and in lucid blue yonders, interpaving third-dimensional existence to multidimensionality. Even so, in this wild-raging cacotopic whirl, onto poetics hearkening to chant monophysitism. Even so, in this archetypal, inviolable whirl, logos hearkening to be imprinted by diaphysitism. Fine-tuning into relationships from unfulfilling, compromising to hypostatic aura blending. Psychometric rhythms metronoming our sevenfold distilled ambrosial affection, mirroring age-old scars and ordeals into apocatastasis, superseding disturbances and divergencies of the lower planes by spheroidal oneness, whirling, connecting coarse kingdoms and finer keynotes, whirling, connecting spoken communication and cosmogonic communion. Even so, it might be too eager yet to decrypt enigmatic teachings. Even so, I can distinguish a ubiquitous methexis wafting ageless wisdom. Windward archaic elevations with neoteric knowledge. Even so, in this heterogeneous amphibolic gyration, pathos venturing to behold platonic forms. Even so, in this homogeneous diaphanous gyration, panpsychism venturing to be encompassed within commonplace perceptibility, reconciling societies from austere dissenting to cultivated pluralistic, sky streaming, Aeolian-born prognostications into amphictyonic cults, poly-eulogized rhapsodies refluxing between matter, turquoise ether, wisely guided elementals feeding the hour through the alpha to the omega, gyrating, incarnating, aerial synthesis and group awareness, gyrating, incarnating, historical solidarity and earth servers, even so. It might be too exceptional yet to epitomize Gnostic truth. Even so, I can swim in Pan-Hellenic waves ebbing into the cyan and white, melding the foam's mystical highlight into the Omphalo's deep shiver. Even so, in this despotic, sophistic spiral, culture is musing to cultivate metaphysical idealism. Even so, in this heliacal coronal spiral, Pansophy musing to be validated by epistemological idealism, advancing governments from dysfunctional, distrusted, to serviceable, trustworthy, allying fluid intuitiveness with directed precision, dialectically reaching impersonal judgments and ethics, equilibrating tides reaching apotheotic crest, where all opposites blend and profit, spiraling, celebrating primeval waters and eos, spiraling, celebrating apocryphal ideations and helionations, even so. It might be too thaumaturgical as of yet to respond to the supreme rays matrix. Even so, we can fly away from scoto-phototactic gorges towards true phototactic acmes, accelerating the inevitable victory of the grand recreation. Even so.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. That was lovely. David, my brother, are you ready to share your piece?
Power on another machine. So yes, if I could share screen, that would be mighty fine.
You should be able to, sir.
Yeah, try this. Okay. So this is the poem I was mentioning as a trans-channeled piece that I've revised and revised for over 25 years. Song for a Seeker of Eden. Over the face of naked waters, a nameless breath was blowing. In wide wind, white seeds of weakness and weightless days of realization whirled in one confused flurry. A subtle hand separated light from dark, dark from salted sky, and turned to lift solid air above from undulating dark seas beneath. On the second day, a sphere of raw fire was carried up into blank dark to create day, and a round stone mirror rose into the opposing sky in a shower of sparks to paint night. Our globe's green skin split into countless shoots of wet grass, and the bark of trees burst into soft green flames. Blizzards of birds brought fresh brilliance to foliage, and 7 oceans flooded with the flashing blue life of countless fish. At the next dawn, dark infant soil learned new red languages, pulses of horses and bulls. Massive shadows of elephants and rams spilled into wilderness wildness of rain winds. On the following day, plots of dull clay were shaped into articulate human fingers. Between blood and blood, skin and skin, man and woman, the two took shape. Held in delicate hands of sentient trees, one unique and rich scarlet fruit, pregnant with secrets and seeds that carried rumors of death. Amidst wrinkled branches, a serpent made of the yellow muscle of want wound this insidious whisper. You will know yourselves and fathom the sky if you bite this blood-red fruit. Each stretched a fleshy hand toward one apple, which was their own crimson consciousness. Man and woman shared that dark-starred fruit until their lips bled with vision, taste of sunset inside the sky. Naked, they ate red within the red as the first leaf wrinkled and blindly fell. And just a second of wisdom I channeled at the time. God is an energy essence and intelligence which pervades the entire universe down to the last atom. So these are from my very own dreams, not a huge amount of them, just enough to share the spirituality. Your poems, are they inspired by God? I love your dream lines. They turn logic upside down. God is the only thing that's real and holds this whole dream. You have access to all the gods and bards. Come in, the window's open. Here are some words. You enjoy the constant memory of God. In darkness, I was walking through blood's door, but now I head toward the portal of the soul. God wants us to see how to see God. Every day, waking up, God's falling from your lost architecture. My long lost lover is in my soul. God is the constant witness of these dreams. Just a few more. They were praying. What were they praying about? God knows. What kind of position is he in? He's unclogging his soul. And now Shakti, of course, is spiritual power. With her Shakti, she'll talk to the soul of her devotee, whispering, all is always well. Have you gathered any evidence for God? Falling stars of God's words, lightning crowds the night horizon. Just a couple more here. Sometimes I feel my work on a poem is done because God has heard. And lastly, about our state in the East, Middle East, our state and our fate, our soul and our goal, our place and our face. This is our true hope of harmony. Don't invade our ground. No more schism prison. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, David. That was marvelous. And I will share these two little with you from my spiritual journey. This first one is called The Traveling Monks. The Traveling Monks. The traveling monks of Drepung Lungse Lamasery, Om, Mani, Padme, Om, have been traveling to share from fair far Tibet what you gain when you forget. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. Their wisdom, like dancing water boy with the buckets who employ with his joyous spillage all the joy and tillage. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. His bearing burden's glory, and then beyond the silence tells the story. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. Sharing music, dance, and through the ritual conjure trance to break the lake, to consecrate. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. The senior monk gave a satsang for the greater glory, and there, amidst the jade and ivory savor, the flavored story, Om, Mani, Padme, Om. We sat in silence and compliance, and the chanting was a delightful violence. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. He asked, the senior monk did. He asked the grown-ups, he asked the kids, Om, Mani, Padme, Om. Did anyone in their position a gentle question poised beyond the noise possession? Om, Mani, Padme, Om. They would learn of the monk's wisdom this shining day amidst old Dharma's play. What this traveling monk thunk is it? Om, Mani, Padme, Om. What did he think after all these weeks in America complete? Was it wondrous? Was it neat? Om, Mani, Padme, Om. The wise monk pondered, and the chelas fidgeted. They sat in their best posture, fingering their beads, and figured for what they were after. Laughter breaks rigid. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. The monk finally spoke and wrestled the yoke from their throats with this brief little note. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. He was not asked, hey, would it last? But he said with a chuckling laugh, Om, Mani, Padme, Om. In America, you have a lot of things. I hope it comfort brings at last. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. And like a pebble troubling the pond, the brainy bounty spun in ripples round the room, dispensing light, disturbing gloom. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. In a room as opulent as any temple, a monk whose life was simple gave an ample sample of simple wisdom thrilled. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. And through the gathered trilled an ancient wisdom surely spilled, like a bolt of lightning thrilled, but some just merely puzzled, and from that moment in the room tumbled. What did it mean? What had they seen? Om, Mani, Padme, Om. The senior monk just smiled, and after a while his smile grew into a laugh at last, and in his wise foolishness found the font's vaunted path. Om, Mani, Padme, Om. Thank you, my friends. Thank you so much. So, you've heard some marvelous poetry. You've drunk from wisdom. I'm going to go around and ask you each to give me your final thoughts. Brother Rawl, sir, you've heard this. You're a wise man. What do you think? What can you share with those who come later?
What can I share? But first of all, thank you for this this opportunity, this gathering of fellow poets, many that I know and respect. I'll leave with these parting words. Like I said before, at the end of the day, no one knows for sure and no one can prove anything. But what I do know is this. We walk the same earth. We breathe the same air. We drink the same water. We all come from woman, and death will visit us all. At the end of the day, we are living in an illusion that we are somehow disconnected from God, from divine. It's impossible to ever be disconnected. And we're not multiple races. We are one race called human that's made up of 31 different flavors. Thank you very much. I love you all.
Love you, brother. Thank you so much. Brother Lantern, sir, what would you like to share in summation?
I said, give yourself to the divine and the whole universe will work with you. This has been my experience.
Well said. Well So
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Sister Therese.
Oh, thank you so much. And I thank everybody here. I thank everybody here for their courage and their risk and their desire to be in relationship with God and one another. And I ask everybody to pray for me and my family.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. Brother Dominic, sir, your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting because somebody, I predominantly teach maths and English, but somebody been on about teaching psychology to one of the children the other day, and I said, "Oh, it's got very scientific psychology, very scientific." And I was thinking to Carl Jung. Anyway, Carl Jung once said that against Freud, against the behaviorists, that the human psyche works in such a way that God exists. And I thought that was really illuminating, because he studied a lot of different cultures, Jung. And I think it's really unfortunate it's been dismissed over the years. But that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sister Alexandra, I'm going to ask you to give us your reflection. What can you share in sum?
It's very soothing to walk our individual paths together.
Thank you so much, dear. Thank you. Sister Whispered, your thoughts in summation?
Well, this has been such a lovely amuse-bouche, and I'm ready for the second course. So,
Nice challenge. Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much. Brother David.
Thanks. All I can do is quote my guru's guru, who I call my other father. So God dwells within you as you, and see God in each other. Thanks very much for bringing us together.
It's been my honor. I can only thank you from the depths of my heart and soul to go on such a journey with such fine individuals who've striven hard, who've worked, who've played to try to bring a little enlightenment to all and every. Thank you, my friends. Go in peace, and you've made our lives brighter for your wisdom. Thank you so much. Good night, good morning, and good day to you all.
blessings to you all.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much for hosting this illustrious gathering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank God you didn't ask the pearly gate question that Rawl always asks.
And on that note, bye-bye.